How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So where are you located at?
So I am located in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada.
Okay. How
So
is
about like two hours from Calgary.
okay. How's everything going and there as far as the corona thing goes?
Um, well, I mean, we're pretty lucky because we don't have many tourists, so I think that everything has stayed relatively calm here.
Hmm.
There, there have been, I think there's been something like 20 cases, but
Okay.
none hospitalized,
Okay.
and they're all from international travel.
So are you guys like nobody's allowed to go out and in, or how's that? Is there any restrictions there?
No, it's just the social distancing. So everything like the essential stores are open, but we don't have curfews or anything like that.
Okay. You said so. Are the gyms open?
Oh no, no, they're not
So not
considered
nothing is
essential.
open outside of
No, the
essential.
grocery stores, um, like basically stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there's still Canadian Tire and like Home Depot is open, which I'm not sure why, but
Right. So what's funny is that there's a Lowe's like right across from my street, and I actually needed something, and so I was like, oh, there's no way that they're going to be open, right? And I drove up there, and they're open. I guess I don't know why it's considered essential, but apparently it is. I don't,
well, it's the same as liquor stores. I think it's
yeah.
hilarious that that liquor stores, gyms
Mhm.
aren't open, but liquor
Right.
stores are. So it's kind of, I don't
Th-
know.
It's well, you know, you got to think that there's a reason behind that because, I mean, the liquor stores are packed right now. Like everyone is buying, alcohol. So it's like it's not essential. We all know that, but they're never going to close down liquor stores. So
No, and so do you guys, is cannabis legal there?
not in my state,
Okay.
but in like California, it is. Some
Yeah.
other states, it is. So
Yeah.
I'm
Colorado.
in Tennessee, so it's not here. Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's legal here.
Hmm.
And that's the other places. So I actually have a friend who she owns a cannabis distribution company. And she's done it for years though. So she
Hmm.
used to supply cannabis for, it was just medical grade.
Right.
And then, of course, once everything was legal, so she said her business is like booming. She's never seen like this amount of business before. So it's like everyone's either like drinking their faces off
Yeah.
or they're, totally stoned. So,
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things, right? Because it's like they say that like during the depression and other times like movie tickets and then like liquor, like alcohol went up, but we
yeah.
can't go to the movies, now. So it's like it's just get, liquor's left. That's it. And I mean cannabis, I guess, in some places. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. So what's also insane is like you can't get a good workout in, but you can do all these other things. Like that's like that's gonna make a difference if a gym is open. You're still you're still like can keep distance. You can allow a certain amount of people in the gym at a time. That you can make
Yes.
like certain decisions to keep gyms open, but they decided not to. So
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about that with, if a privately owned gym, they could have sign up sheets so that, there's only six people in the gym at
hmm.
once,
Yeah, yeah. If you
but
if you look at like weights and stuff of people, because people obviously are taking advantage of it. Like I was in the market for like uh, a bike, and I mean, these people are selling them, but they're charging crazy prices, like for anything having to do with like athletics. Weights are like super expensive now if you want to buy them off of somebody. So it's kind of crazy.
yeah, so because we outfitted our garage,
Hmm.
and by the time, and it was only like a week into the whole social distancing thing, and we could barely find bumper plates at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were lucky because we lift really heavy dumbbells.
Right.
So we bought from like 50 all the way up to 100.
Hmm.
The general population doesn't buy dumbbells that heavy.
Right.
We already had all the small ones, but so we were at an advantage. But like if you're going out trying to find like between like 5 and 30 pound dumbbells, there's nothing.
Yeah, yeah, it's empty, and it's still empty. That's the funny thing. It's like been trying to like look at different places, and I've been able to get like, you know, 45 here, some 35s there, but it's still primarily like empty, you know, every time. That and a hand sanitizer apparently is also going quickly. So
Well, there's actually a distillery in our town, and they started making hand sanitizer.
yeah, well, so one of the liquor stores here,
Yeah.
there's a local vodka company, and that's what they did. They're
Yes.
making hand sanitizer, but people are buying it right away. Like I went there to get some to the liquor store, and the guy said there, you have to come in like almost immediately because they sold out like within an hour, you know, of getting it. So
That and toilet paper.
yeah. Now I have been so I don't know why toilet paper is such a like commodity. Like
I
everybody
don't know.
just goes crazy over it. You know, I think it's a panic. You know, people are panicking, and then when they
Totally.
panic, they start to hoard stuff. You know, so
Yeah,
there's
and
a
that and flour. So my kids wanted cookies, so I don't usually bake a whole lot, just
mhm.
because lots of times I'm in prep. So I went to buy flour. There was no flour, and but yet on all the shelves, it was all the canned items are still there. So there's still
Yeah.
canned tuna, canned salmon, and I thought, if there actually was a point where everything was shut down and I needed to have food for my house,
Mhm.
I'm not going to pick flour.
Right. So initially when it hit, like I was talking to my family, like my mom, my wife, I was like, look, I mean, I'm a very how can I put this? I'm a very like doomsday scenario type of person. Like I've got like a go bag and I've got like stuff. And I was like, we need to go and get canned food because that's what you need. You need water and food, like right. So I go, canned food, not touched.
I know
Not
it's
touched.
good. It's
Nobody cared about canned food. I was like,
I know.
okay. But all these other things that you don't really, you know, you can survive without, that's all gone. So
Yeah.
vegetables too, like that nobody bought vegetables, nobody bought like any kind of, you know, like healthy food or anything like that. It's just it's still
No.
there, plenty of it. So crazy.
Yeah.
How are you training now? Like you just in the garage?
Yeah. So we outfitted our garage. I mean, it's all free weights. We
Hmm.
didn't we didn't buy any fancy machines. I know I've seen lots of other
Yeah.
competitors that have like outfitted their garage with machines.
Yeah.
So I have an assault bike for for cardio, which I
Hmm.
absolutely hate. But and then I still get outside because we have lots of stairs. So because usually I do stepper, so I'm outside running stairs.
Sure.
But we have a squat rack, we have a couple barbells, and then bumper plates, and then we've got like the whole
Hmm.
range of dumbbells. So
Yeah.
things have changed a little bit. Um, Everything has to be modified now, right? So it's like figuring out stuff that works for leg press, leg extensions. Like
Right.
it's trying to be creative with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of trying to be as creative as possible, you know, just different. Like I wasn't able to get an incline bench, like I couldn't find one at a decent price at least. So I had to like somehow maneuver up against the wall to put some down to make a makeshift like incline
I know.
situation. Yeah, so I mean, it's doable, and I have good workouts. That's the thing. It's like I still have like really good workouts, real good pump, you know, from it. So you know, people are freaking out, but I think you can make it work, especially with like your situation. You're saying you have a squat rack, and you know that's important, right? Good for legs, especially like squatting
Yes.
is everything, you know. So
And I think at this point, it's like there's like a couple types of people that go to the gym, right? And then there's the
mhm,
people who train because they really, really like to train.
right,
And I think those people are having an easier time with it being, with training at home because they still love doing it and they like the challenge of figuring out a new way.
hmm,
Whereas there's the people who went to the gym before so other people could see them,
right, right, yeah. It's
right?
like
And so they're
yeah,
struggling because it's like they don't have the same intensity in their workouts because don't have anyone to try and impress. I
right.
don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right because it's like there's people there there for other people and then there's people there for themselves. And it's like if you're
Yes.
there for yourself, you're just you're just changing the scenery a little bit, and maybe adjusting your workout, but nothing's really changing because you're still doing what you enjoy. But for those other people, they enjoy, like you said, being seen. So for them, it's like, it's not, it's not as interesting anymore. And you kind of lose that enthusiasm.
Yeah, and it's like in my gym at home now, no one's gonna steal my bench. No one's gonna steal my weights. Yeah, I can clean my stuff. It's not gonna be some sweaty guy on the bench that doesn't clean his
Right,
bench.
right,
Like there's definitely pros to it. Of course there's cons, but
right.
it's just a different time.
Yeah, I love opening my garage up on a nice like sunny day like we're having right now here, and it just like working out, putting some music on, working out. The sun's nice and bright and feels good. Fresh air feels good. It's like
Yeah.
in the gym you don't get that. I mean, you're in an enclosed environment. It's a little different, and it's kind of nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, how did you get? I guess let's just kind of start from, how did
Okay.
you get into training? Like just in general.
Well, so I've been an athlete pretty much all my life.
Hmm.
I played like college, well, high level basketball in high school and then
Oh, wow.
after. Um, and then right around 19, I actually wanted to be a firefighter. So I hired a personal trainer, and then it just kind of went from there. Um, I never did become a firefighter. I became a paramedic.
Okay.
And so part of being a paramedic was I needed to be fit, right?
Hmm.
So I just kept training from there. I mean, it just, yeah, it was that very first personal trainer that just totally got me hooked, taught
Hmm.
me like a really good foundation, how to lift properly. He was even teaching me like the mind muscle connection way back then. Like that was
Hmm.
like I'm 42 now. So that was a long time ago.
Right. Right.
Whereas everyone thinks the whole mind muscle connection is like this new
Hmm.
thing. But
Hmm.
so that's kind of where it started. Um, and then I had a couple, and then like getting into competing, um, I had a couple of kids, and maybe most women go through this point where they're just like, oh God, I kind of want to get my physique back.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if you know who Ocean Bloom is.
It sounds familiar, but
So Ocean Bloom, I mean, she was like the youngest woman to be in muscle fitness.
oh, okay. No,
She was a bodybuilder. I mean,
hmm.
she back then she was a bodybuilder, but of course
Hmm.
back then like that would have been in like 90, probably in 1994 or
Hmm.
95, so a long time ago. Of course now she wouldn't even look like she's a bodybuilder, but
Right.
um, I happened to take some yoga training with her, and we clicked. She was a fitness competitor for years,
Hmm.
and then she was like, "Well, why don't you just train with me, and why don't I just do online?" And she actually did online training with me because we didn't live in the same place. And I competed because of her. So that was in
Nice.
like 2008.
It's amazing how like someone can just inspire you. It's sometimes it also comes from places where you don't expect it. Some you want that inspiration to come from like somebody really like, important or like famous or something like that, but a lot of times it just comes from somebody that you happen to click with that's doing something like, hey, that's kind of interesting, and then you get into it, and then it just evolves into a whole lifestyle.
Yeah, and so I mean, I competed. She was my coach for one, and then they actually switched coaches, and it was really terrible. And she ran me into the ground. So it's like your
Wow.
typical like hours of cardio, barely any food, um, and yeah, it was pretty bad. And she had won the Arnold and the Olympia multiple times
Okay. And in what division?
in fitness.
Oh, in fitness.
In
Yeah.
fitness, yeah. So, and that was just the way things were done back then,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that people are a lot smarter now. There are more people that are training smarter and prepping smarter now.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so, but for me, like that was a huge eye opener where I just thought, well, I can't continue like this. So I took a big long hiatus.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because people a lot of times it's kind of like the mentality is the tougher it is, the harder it is, the better it is for you. Like I come from a like a wrestling and a grappling background,
Yeah.
and it was like that, you know, in practice and everything. It's like, oh well, if it's tough, then it's better for you. But I think as time progresses and people kind of learn science and other things that help, they understand that it's not necessarily of how difficult it is, but it's like it's how smart like you're training, that's really what's important, you know. So
Well,
I
I mean,
think
the thing is
okay.
people like extremes.
Hmm.
People really are drawn to extremes, right? So they think that the more extreme something is, the better the results they're going to get. And then along the way, they have now, because of social media, they have far more content to post about,
Yeah,
you
that's
know, like, and
true.
it's like
Yeah.
this badge of honor, like, you know, like, oh, look, I'm eating my 3 spears of asparagus and my tilapia,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm dying, I'm starving, I'm doing, you know, whereas people are like, whoa, he's super hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas do they want to see like someone who's doing it smart and it's not that exciting? It's like really boring.
Right,
No,
right, right.
you
It's like
know?
we, you know, if you're posting something, you want something that's going to catch people's attention, and it's like balanced things don't catch people's attention. Like you're right,
Yeah.
extreme things do. You know, that's where you get all these crazy workouts on Instagram. Like, let's talk about that. You know, it's you have these like weird ways and people are doing things like contorting their bodies to for exercise when just a regular squat would do it, or just a regular bench would get what you need and more so, you know. But it's not exciting, you know. Regular bench presses aren't exciting to post, you know.
No, like the basics are not exciting. And it's the same thing with like, even with prep, like prep is not exciting. Like it's like Groundhog Day. You do the same boring, monotonous shit every day.
Right,
And
right.
then eventually, once you get closer to your date, you're doing it with less food,
Yeah.
right?
So how do you eat, like when you were prepping? I know the girl that ran you into the ground. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about like on a successful prep, like how would
Yeah.
you eat?
Um, well, I mean, I hadn't competed for quite some time, so it was just this last. So I started prepping in like July for a show in October, but I was already pretty lean at that
Hmm.
point. Um, so honestly, because I did have a coach for that, and the
Hmm.
way that he prepped me was I basically had no carbs, but I carb cycled.
Okay. So what does a carb cycle look like for you? Because everybody
Um,
says carb cycling, but they all mean like different things, you know?
yeah. So what it started out with was um, I would have like 2 days of just protein and incidental fat. So I
Hmm.
had barely any fat. So it was only the fat that was like in the protein that I was eating.
Hmm.
So it was like um, so I would basically eat like 5 or 6 meals a day. And I think there was 40 grams of protein. I mean, I have all in notes, but
Yeah.
40 grams of protein and about 7 grams of fat
Hmm.
was usually what it was, just like incidental fat. And then, and there was the only carbs that I would get were from green vegetables. And then, so that would start with, I would have 2 days no carb, 1 day with carb. And
Hmm.
the carbs were probably about, um, they were about 150 grams carbs. So
Hmm.
still not very much.
Yeah.
And then and I continued like that until I got a lot leaner. And then probably, I'm thinking I was like 8 weeks out. I was getting like 300 or 400 gram carb refeeds every 2 or 3 days.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty low, like carbohydrate wise. And what is your like stage weight compared to like your off season weight?
So my stage weight was 149.
Okay.
Um, and I pretty much all through prep, I stayed at I was probably like around 160.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't actually get down to under under 155 until probably like 2 weeks out.
Mm-hmm. So not a huge drop in weight, like, because you said you were pretty lean already going into the
Yeah.
prep. Do you generally stay like lean throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, over like this past couple years though, I have put on quite a bit more mass. So
Mm-hmm.
this is going to change because just this year. So um, after competed in October last year, it was like game on for building more muscle.
Sure. Sure.
So right now I'm sitting at like 175.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So it'll be interesting to see in August. So I compete in August now. Like what my stage weight will be. I have a different coach this time as well.
mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like coaches make a significant difference in your prep? Like, because the reason I asked that is because, you've mentioned several like coaches, and you
Yeah.
said this time it's a different one from even the last time. Was there like a reason behind those switches, or?
Yeah, so I had a pretty high level, one of the best coaches for this last prep.
Mhm.
He's very, very busy. And he, the first prep was really good, but then I really, really didn't like off season with him.
Okay.
I felt like I didn't have much direction. Nothing was individualized. It was very cookie cutter.
Mhm.
And I feel like it just wasn't the best off season for me.
Mhm.
Um, and so there were some things that had happened that he had recommended that I just wasn't comfortable with, and I just didn't like the way he was doing stuff.
Sure.
So so I switched over. So I'm actually with John Jewett now,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
who is like phenomenal.
Mhm.
I guess it's because my last coach, his his coaching philosophy and mine were very different.
Yeah.
Whereas with John, like because I'm also a coach, the way he coaches is how I coach people.
Mhm. So it's a better fit for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting with coaches because it's like there's so many different opinions on that, like whether you should even have one, or what, like, especially with coaches that have a lot of people that are their clients. They're, a lot of what I hear is that you'll get cookie cutter stuff unless you're high level. So they like devote a lot of their time to like high level competitors, and then everyone else just basically gets, a scripted, situation. So
Yes.
yeah.
And I mean, the coach that got me, I mean, I won everything at that show.
Right. They're
So
in
it's
good
not
shape.
that he's a bad coach, but um, I just there were just things that we just didn't agree upon.
Hmm.
I mean, and I think that so when it comes to having a coach too, I mean, you need to be coachable because I mean, I've had clients who whereas I feel like it's really good to question things
Right.
if that's the type of person you are to get an answer, but um, you can't always argue things because you hire a coach because they view you very objectively, whereas you view yourself subjectively, and it's all about
Hmm.
feeling, which is
Right.
still important. But at the same time, you still need someone, especially in an aesthetic-based sport, to tell you the truth,
Right.
because we're not going to tell ourselves the truth, and our husband or our wife isn't, or our best friend, because they don't view us objectively like a coach would,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and the thing about, hold on, I'm trying to do this camera thing. It went out for a second. Um, s- so yeah, but as far as like coaching, do you think there's kind of like two types of people, right? There's people that are like head down, doesn't matter what you tell them, they're gonna do what you tell them, and then there's like people that want to know why all the time. And I mean, I feel like explanations are important, because especially if someone is, paying you, to coach them.
Yes.
But there is a balance, right? Like there's a balance of of just, like you said, too much, back and forth. And then at that point, if you have to go back and forth on every little thing, it becomes just a very difficult situation, And yeah, so I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from. Do you think there's ever going to be a time where like you don't have a coach and you're just going to coach yourself? Because like you said, I mean, you're a coach yourself, you train others. Do you think there's going to be a point where you feel like you can assess yourself without anyone's help?
Um, you know, I would like to think that I could get to that, or I could do it myself, but I feel like when you're in prep, there's so many other things that you need to focus your energy on that
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think that I will always have someone coach me for like during prep, like to
Gotcha.
prep me for the show. And it's, I just think that it's like, it's so much time and energy trying to figure out all of that. And like, even
Mm-hmm.
peak week, like it's way, like for myself, I would far rather have someone else look at me and tell me what I need during that week or even the day of your show, as opposed to me trying to figure that out along with like my hair and my makeup and my suit and practicing posing and like all that other stuff. It's just
Right.
like, to me, it's just, I wouldn't do my own hair and makeup either. So like, I would
Yeah.
just rather have someone there to support me. And like, what if something goes wrong? My coach would probably know what to do. Whereas I'd be like, shit, now I need to research this and I don't know
Right.
how to do it. And maybe I'm too far gone now. So
Sure. So I guess like it's just something off your plate because you have so much, that you have to worry about. Yeah, and that's the thing about like sometimes like when I talk to fitness women and things, you don't think about the fact that they also do their hair and their makeup. Like I only think about physique because obviously like that's not a concern for me, makeup and hair and stuff. So but yeah,
no,
but that's a big part of it, right? Because I mean, if that's not done well, that it could cost you placings.
yeah.
Yeah. So now, so you did well in your last show. This year all the shows are a little, in flux, so to say. So what's your goal? Like, what's the plan
Well,
at
I
this
mean, the
point?
plan was, so I qualified at regionals um, so that I could go to nationals.
Mhm.
So that means that I was actually supposed to compete at the end of June for the Vancouver Pro Show.
Mhm.
Um, but now with all the shows being postponed, so
Yeah.
now that show is postponed now until the end of August.
Mm.
So I'm back
That's
to
a big show,
improvement
though.
season. So I'm back to improvement season now. So we're gonna try and still put on a little bit of more lean mass
Okay.
over the next, because I'm thinking prep will probably be about 12 weeks. So
Mhm.
have another six weeks of eating and lifting.
Mhm.
Um, and then we'll start to dial things in, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're probably at a better spot than most people, just judging by, you said you outfitted your garage. Since probably the higher level, the pros will have like their own gyms and things of that nature, but
Yeah,
the rest of the people are having a hard time. So if you can make improvements during this time and then come back after, to a postponed show, I mean, you could really make some major, cause major problems for people in the Vancouver show. That's a big show.
yeah, yeah. The pro show is actually canceled, but they're doing the qualifier. So
Right.
now, if that happens to get canceled, then I'm actually looking at North Americans in Pittsburgh,
Hmm. Yeah, you could do that.
and that's
That
in September.
Do you think we're gonna have the Olympia this year?
Oh God, you know, my friend and I were just talking about that because she already has her tickets for it. Um, Honestly, I think that it probably will go, just with everything happening down there right
Hmm.
now, with places starting to reopen. Like, I have a friend who lives in Texas that said
Yeah.
everything's starting to reopen again at the end of April. So
Okay. So you
I
think it's
know,
probably
I
gonna
know
happen?
Trump is definitely focused on your economy and wants it to be
Yeah.
strong. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I was listening to another podcast with I don't know if do you know who Dave Palumbo is?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was listening to him and Chris Aceto talk, and one thing that was mentioned was that sponsors, like we don't think about that as athletes, or like in my case, I'm not an athlete. I don't compete, but I'm an enthusiast of the sport, and we focus on the athletes themselves, but we don't see it as a business. So I wonder how like sponsors are going to be affected by all of this. Like, are they going to be in a position to sponsor the show, the Olympia show? Because that might make the difference, you know?
Well, exactly, especially after, so my partner, he owns a supplement company here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's CrossFit based though, so it doesn't have anything to do with bodybuilding, but they've taken a huge hit as well. And
Right.
it's a relatively small company, but their numbers have gone down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine that it's going to happen for everyone in the supplement industry.
Sure.
Or I don't know, because so the supplement store here in town, we know the owner, and he said that he's busier than he's ever been. So I don't know if
That's
it's like
interesting.
people thinking like, well, now that I can't train, I need to take all these supplements to stay anabolic. Like, right? I don't know.
They're
Like
just
he said,
drinking
he's
creatine all day.
crazy busy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
So,
that's weird to me. That's weird to me that he's that busy. Yeah, it is interesting because it's like during this quarantine, like stay home thing, a lot of fitness oriented things did go like up, but so I mean maybe that's why. Maybe you're right. Maybe people are just thinking, look, I need to focus even more on fitness, so I'm buying more, supplements and things of that nature. But I don't know. I gotta think, he's rarity. I gotta think he's rare because, I imagine all these companies are probably losing money primarily because people I would think, are not quick to spend money right now,
well,
and
that's the thing is, if you've lost your job, how do you have extra money to spend on supplements?
right, yeah, right. You're trying to make rent, not buy creatine, like.
Yes.
So yeah, I gotta think that the bigger companies took huge hits, and it's not cheap to put a booth or to sponsor Olympia. Those are
Oh
expensive
God, those
shows.
booths are like 50 grand
Yeah, so
for a
I don't
booth.
know. I don't know. It'll definitely be interesting to see who owns the Olympia now. Jake Woods, right? I believe.
Yes. Yeah, they
So
just sold it to Jake Woods. So
yes, so his first year, and he's got to deal with it. I mean, that's a serious problem. But he's such a enthusiast of the sport, and he loves bodybuilding. Because he was hosting the Wings of Strength show for years.
yes. Yeah.
It was really, he's the one that brought back women's bodybuilding.
Women's
So
bodybuilding to
yeah,
it. Yeah.
so
So who knows? Maybe there won't be an expo.
that could.
Maybe for this year, it's going to be just for the athletes, and it's not, and it's just that's what it's going to be. Because it's one of the biggest shows for athletes, for pros.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
so
because
who
you have
knows?
to have a
Maybe.
crowned Olympia champ, like because what happens then? You just have a year where like no one gets crowned as a champion. That's kind of, that'll be strange.
Yeah.
So, um, it's possible they could live stream it.
Yeah.
That's always an option. Sell commercials, or that kind of thing. It's
Yeah, who knows? It's
it's
going to be
tough.
an interesting year for sure, just with like with all of these shows being pushed back too. Like, is there going to be one every single weekend
Hmm.
as soon as everything reopens too? So,
Yeah, which is, I mean, good for you if you're a competitor, because everybody can't be like doing shows back to back. So if you pick your show right, you might get a better lineup, more strategic in the way you compete. When shows are farther apart, I imagine you get much tougher lineups. So
yeah.
I don't know, but definitely it'll be something. I was literally about to leave for the Arnold in Ohio, and looked online, and that it was like canceled. The expo was canceled and everything. So I was like, well, there goes that. And it was like the day before. It was crazy. I was very
In
disappointed.
hindsight, it's probably a really good idea that they did that.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
right?
No, I mean, I think all of this is important. Apparently they're saying the numbers are going down in some places, which is good. But I also think that they're probably going down because of the restrictions that were put in
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
So it was necessary. I'm just
Yeah.
curious. I'm curious on what's going to happen when they start reopening these places, because it's not like Corona left, so it's still here. So I wonder how the infection rate is going to be affected.
Well, I think it's just having that long-term plan, right? You can't just open everything all at once. I think it needs to be done in steps.
Right.
But I really think that it's amazing what New York has done, how if you leave your house, you need to have a mask on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Some
mean,
places, yeah, some places they like I was just talking to a friend of mine, excuse me, a friend of mine in Puerto Rico, and he was saying that that you get a fine if you're not wearing a mask,
yeah,
and even if if you go somewhere where it's not essential, and they find out or they know, you'll get fined for that as well. So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Um, yeah, and the whole competing thing too, there's just, going back to that
yeah.
is, um, so I qualified in physique.
Hmm.
And I've actually, so with having a new coach, John and I were talking about me actually doing a figure show, a regional figure show right before I competed in physique.
Hmm.
Um, and like, I don't know if you've talked to many female competitors about this, but just how the classes have changed over the years, and how big the physique girls are now. Um, and I'm really leery about what I would have to do to get that big,
To be in physique, to
to be in like pro level physique.
yeah.
They're
um
really big now. And I think it's because women's bodybuilding was gone for so long that the female bodybuilders went to physique. But I mean, if you look at the pro stage for physique women, like I was at the Olympia last year and they're giant. Like,
the issue, so here's the issue with bodybuilding in general and fitness in general. Everyone is getting bigger. That, like, and you said, yes, I have talked to several women that feel exactly the same way. Even if you look at the bikini girls,
I
much
know,
more
it's
muscular,
insane.
much more muscular, than before. We were talking about Ashley Kaltwasser, who he won the Olympia like 2 or 3 times
Yeah.
in the past, came back, and I don't think she's even cracking top five. So it's totally different physique now, and obviously figure girls much more muscular, and then going up and up,
Way
it's
bigger.
yeah, everyone's bigger. You were talking about the earlier bodybuilders. I mean, they maybe would look like figure girls today, maybe. It's
Yeah,
definitely
if you watch
different.
Pumping Iron
Yeah.
and the women that are in there, and those are the bodybuilders, and it's like
Right.
they're smaller than the figure girls now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
You have to be really cautious, because the stress that, especially as a woman too, the stress and the supplements that you would need to take to get to that size can have a very, long lasting effect. So it's, I mean, bodybuilding is nice, but essentially it is a hobby. Like, most people don't
you
make money
don't make
from it.
Most people do not make money from it.
Right. So you got to
It's
be,
a whole cost and payoff thing.
yeah, you got to be careful about, the long lasting effects, of doing that. But then again, I mean, then you have girls that are just love being big. It just depends on your preference too.
Well, there's also the women, not just women, but competitors out there that are the win at any cost, right?
Right.
They will do whatever it takes. They'll go to that extreme
Yeah.
without thinking about the long-term consequences, right? And
Sure.
so you'll see, and there's, even my past coach, he has tons of girls that have won, um, and are high level competitors, but their longevity is like this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're around for a very short time and then they disappear,
Sure. Sure.
right? And
Understandably, yeah. Why? I mean, because you can't, you can't take that too long. It's like your body can only take so much.
no, and it's like and that's another thing within the, like for female competitors too, is there's so little research done on performance enhancing drugs or anabolics with women, that you still have all of these coaches that are just dosing them with the same dosages as men,
Right.
or using cookie cutter plans where it's like, well, this is what is women should do, so I'm just going to give this to everyone, but they don't look at the individual.
Sure. Yeah,
because every woman has different hormone levels.
Right.
So if a female already has high androgens, naturally, are you going to give her the same dosages for anabolics as someone who has low androgens?
Right. And it's, it's one of those things where it's like for men, it's the detriment is not nearly as high, so you really got to weigh it out, because even if you stop, and you stop competing and you stop using the PEDs, then it's like the effects will still be there for a woman. So you really got to be, you got to know what you want, and you got to pick the right coaches, like you said. You don't want somebody that's gonna just because they're not, they don't have to pay the consequences of of that. You do. So
yeah. And I mean, and I think there's also that point of I don't want to call it being lazy too, but thinking that relying on just pharmaceuticals in order to achieve specific results, right?
Right.
So like as an example, say using stimulants in order to lean out, you should do the majority of that on your own with your diet first, and you use all of the fat or the thermogenics as a last resort, not through your entire prep.
Sure. And that's I think that's also, not to get too deep and like philosophical, but I think it's a society problem too, because everybody wants things fast, and
Instant gratification.
we're used to that because we've been on the upswing with technology and everything, for a long time. So we're every 2 years we get a new iPhone. Every whatever, we get a new computer. So it's we're on the upswing and have been pretty much for our entire lives. So like when it comes to fitness, we want the same thing, but not respecting the process can cost you, like you said, using stimulants or thermogenics or whatever other fat burning supplements or PEDs you're going to use for a long time is going to have consequences. Your heart, I mean, all these other things that come into play. And it's like, it's going to be a serious cost to that. You're just going to pay it down the road,
Yeah. And like as an example too, I think the first time I went to the Arnold was in the Olympia. It was 2009. And so I worked for Status Fitness magazine for a while, and I went with them. And I just like talking about how women's physiques have changed, or like the classes, and the bikini girls that year, they were like soft, smooth bags of milk. Like, which, I mean, it was just if you had big boobs and you had a nice round bum, but you weren't allowed to have any vascularity, no abs showing, no striations. Like there was no glute hamstring tie-ins showing in bikini then.
Right.
It was like a Hawaiian tropic bikini show.
Yeah. They were looking at beauty, basically, just strictly on beauty. Yeah.
And I mean, and then now, I mean, you look at bikini girls and it's just, it totally blows my mind. And like the figure then, it was Nicole Wilkins and Erin Stern.
Right.
And Ava Cowan.
Yeah. Which actually, Ava, it's interesting that you mentioned we're supposed to do a podcast together, hopefully here within a couple of weeks. So I'm pretty excited about that. But
no kidding, because she is like, she's an icon, like a fitness icon. Like
absolutely,
I wanted her physique. Like when I started competing, it was like, I want to look like Ava Cowan.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. She was definitely up there. She was in a lot of those I think she worked for Gaspari, if I'm not
She
mistaken.
was a Gaspari girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they did a lot of photo shoots with her that were like the now are kind of like in the like I was talking to my wife about like just fitness and fitness history and my personal fitness history. And with me, it's like Ronnie is there, like Ava
Yes.
Cowan is there, like because
Yes.
those are my times. You know, people coming up now, they'll have their own, you know, people they remember, but those were my years, you know. So yeah,
I know her
definitely
photo
excited.
shoots where she had the chains around her neck and she was all
Right.
wet.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like,
That was
those
def
are epic.
that was cool. Yeah. But as far as like the physique, yeah, not to, you know, beat a dead horse, but when they brought this women's physique into it, initially it was supposed to be because the bodybuilder women were getting out of hand as far as like
Yes.
the looks. Nobody, for most part, most people didn't find that to be appealing, so they wanted like someone who's muscular but not as big, you know, all that. And
Dana Lynn Bailey, she was
yeah,
physique. Like,
absolutely, yeah, she was the
and
first one to win it, right? The first Olympia
yeah,
champ in that.
because they told her she was too big for figure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not now, for sure. Not
Oh
now.
my gosh. Like,
Yeah. So, and then it just started turning into women's bodybuilding again. So now it's like, what do you, I mean, there's some differences between women's bodybuilding and physique, but I mean, they're getting closer and closer. Like, you know, so
totally.
yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting what happens, you know.
Okay, so question for you then. Do
Mhm.
you think that it's actually from the judges or it's from the competitors why it is that they've gotten so like girls just keep getting bigger?
Yeah. So to say that, I do think that everyone's getting bigger. Women, I think men also are
Well,
getting
men
bigger.
are do, yeah,
Yeah, but I think it's a combination. I think internally, as we lift, we want to achieve bigger, better things. So
yeah,
so mentally, I think everyone just inevitably is getting bigger, right? It's up to the judges to reward a certain look,
right.
to help people not do that. So if they're constantly rewarding people that are bigger, there's no reason for anybody to keep their same size. They're always going to
Yeah.
strive to continue to get bigger. So, you know, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think that I mean it definitely has to do with the competitors too. Like if um if if women did, I mean, there's only one way for women to keep getting bigger, and it's usually taking more anabolics, right?
Mhm. Right.
But it's always just that getting bigger doesn't necessarily mean that you look better
Right.
for that
Absolutely.
category. So I
Absolutely.
think that there are far more other ways that you can become better without getting bigger,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah, no, I completely
So
understand. I think, yeah, I think that plays with men too. But of course, with women, there's going to be like a beauty aspect to it too, and a little more than men, I would say. But I don't know, maybe that, maybe not. But yeah, like you mentioned, if you just because you're getting bigger doesn't mean you're getting better. Like there's, you know, you sometimes can lose like proportion size. You can, you know, you can mess with the way your physique, you know, shape is, the way your look is. You can be, so you don't want to look like just a huge block, you know. That's, you want to avoid that. So I would
I mean,
say,
when the judges, I mean, if you have a stage full of women that keep showing up, getting bigger and more jacked and more lean, and then what else can they do besides judge that?
yeah,
Right?
that's
So I
true
mean,
too. That, I
they have
mean,
to roll with whatever shows up on stage. So that's why part of me thinks that it starts with the competitors.
so it's yeah, it's kind of like a chicken egg scenario, you know. It's like what came first, you know. But I think everybody has a place in this, you know, to affect it for the better, or the worse in this case scenario. So yeah, I mean, I completely understand what you mean. If you're judging 10 girls and all of them are huge, then I mean, I mean, you gotta give it to somebody, right? So um and you can't, you know, you can't give it to the smaller person just because they're smaller if they're not in their best shape and so forth. So sometimes the big girl does get, the nod, even
Yeah.
though, it's might not be overall the best thing for the sport, so
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that's kind of like, it'll be interesting to see, because at some point it's gonna have to like stop. I mean, you can't continue because everybody will look the same. So, I wonder if they're just going to start bringing in more divisions or changing things. I don't know. It's a tough situation, for sure.
I don't know. I wonder if it's like things will change once now that female bodybuilding is
Hmm.
back. If the judges will actually say to, you're actually too big for
Yeah.
physique, you should be looking at bodybuilding, either that or, you can't get any bigger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So,
Shanique Grand is. I mean, she looks great, but she is, right up there. I mean, she could easily, a couple more pounds and jump into, bodybuilding. So
yeah.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, but who knows? Maybe with this whole Corona thing, everybody will come in a little smaller.
Well,
Never
and
know.
that's that, like, what's her name? Natalia Colo,
Yeah,
who,
I know who you're talking about. I'm not sure that's exactly the name, but yeah, I know who
yeah,
you're
I don't know.
talking
I
about.
can't remember how you say her name exactly.
Hmm.
I think it's, I'll just look her up here.
Sure.
She, because I know at, at the Olympia, I mean, she is so much bigger than a lot of the other girls. Like with her, like her lats are gigantic. Like to
Hmm.
me, looking at her, because she won the Arnold
Hmm.
in physique, but she looks like bodybuilder to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's for me right now. I mean, I'm 42. I mean, I do this because I love it, and
Sure.
I mean, and I love the process of it, and having the ability to change my physique and the hard work and the challenge. But at the same time, you kind of have to be realistic about it.
Right.
And do I at this age, like, what is going to increase my longevity in sport? And
Sure.
it's definitely not going to be trying to catch the pro girls in physique.
Sure.
So
Sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I
just,
mean, it's a two-part question, right? You want to be your best, but you also want to be your best for the longest. So